NASCAR 26 franchise mode is something I desperately want, and although I know we're not going to get that in NASCAR 26, I wanted to get the ball rolling here because this is a feature that has never really been properly utilized by not only NASCAR games, but racing games in general for official motorsports, including Formula One, which is well on their way to doing exactly that, but they've even still got a ways to go. And I have a whole concept, and I'm going to utilize some games, including, of course, Formula One Manager is a great way to do it, and even other sports games as well, and talk about the concept of a NASCAR franchise mode. And I think a really, really underutilized opportunity and feature for NASCAR games. And I really think this is a feature that, of course, iRacing Studios should really look at getting into. Maybe NASCAR 27, at least get it started, of course. I mean, they're not going to be able to, of course, have a fully fledged out whatever I want by that game, but I think they could have something started if they really, really kind of like take some tabs and listen in on some of the comments. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, first of all, let me know down below, would you want that? I think we all are in agreement. It would be really, really cool. And immediately, we start with the option of you can now manage your own NASCAR team, or you can take over an existing team. And I'm going to take a lot of influence from F1 Manager, and there's no reason we can't build this system inside a NASCAR game. It's almost like basically a NASCAR Manager game inside the current NASCAR games. I think would be brilliant. So you own a team, your own team, or a current team that's in the Cup Series. You take over the team, and you have these goals set, of course, from the board of people that are basically financing or funding your entire dream of being a NASCAR Cup Series owner. And you have to meet these objectives in finishing positions, championship finishing position, making the chase, and stuff like that. And you can either, of course, with owning a team, own all those different cars, 3-car teams, 4-car teams. If you own your own team, you can, over time, be able to upgrade to a 2-car team, to a 3-car team. Of course, with the new charter rules, you cannot own more than 3 cars full time, so it caps out there. Therefore, on top of that, okay, we have to make those investments. We have to go out, we have to buy charters with the money, find funding to get these charters, and then we can go and hire real-life drivers to come to our team. You can poach drivers away from IRL teams as well, try to counter offer, say, of course, if I want to go and get an up-and-comer like a Christopher Bell, oh, he's not really an up-and-comer anymore, he's a very well-established driver, but I want to go get Christopher Bell from Joe Gibbs to drive for my brand new team. Well, he has an offer on the table from Joe Gibbs to stay for another 2 or 3 years, and then I can counter-offer him more money, more years, or whatever he is looking for, and then influence him to come join my team. On top of that, as you get these drivers, and you can also have, options to scout all these drivers and up-and-comers from O'Reilly, Trucks, ARCA, and it'd be even cooler if they had a pool of drivers from below ARCA. You don't have to include the series, but bring drivers from, Cars Tour and stuff like that all the way down in the levels, and bring them into the pool of drivers that you can scout, and eventually have your own development programs so you can properly develop a driver to therefore eventually come into your team and allow us to own, teams in several series. I want to own an O'Reilly team, a truck team as well, and then a driver I'm developing can stay with my team and come up through the ladder as time goes on. And that would just be so cool. And take for example a Canadian driver of Trayton Lapsevich. I can sign him on and develop him through the ranks into trucks in O'Reilly, and eventually, hopefully, he's good enough to reach the Cup Series as one of my prospect drivers alongside of Christopher Bell, a well, versed driver with a ton of experience. We talk about signing drivers, scouting drivers. Well, it needs to go way deeper than just the drivers. No, we need to be able to, of course, scout and sign team members, crew chiefs for our drivers, even go as far as having to sign on spotters. On top of that, pit crew members. I want to be able to scout. I want to be able to manage my pit crews and develop my pit crews. And you can have like a pit crew coach like the F1 Manager game has, where you can have a coach kind of take care of everything, but you can kind of give him the idea of the direction to go with your team in terms of training. And then you have your, department heads, like aerodynamics, downforce, and just the overall engineers and mechanics. Maybe mechanics maybe don't go that deep because that'd be a ton of managing there. But, get the basics, like, the head of downforce and head of aerodynamics and the head of design, stuff like that, and have to sign those people on. But, being able to, like, poach a Cliff Daniels from Hendrick Motorsports and Kyle Larson to come over to my up-and-coming team that has this wild vision of how to get to the front of the Cup Series would be really cool. And we talk about all these different layers and crew chiefs and pit crew members. Well, now we implement, of course, something that works really well in these franchise modes, and that is chemistry. So you bring over, say, a Cliff Daniels to work alongside Christopher Bell, and they have a chemistry, and their chemistry will influence the race performance and the qualifying performance. And, the worse the chemistry is, the worse they're going to do, and so on and so forth. And sometimes, the chemistry, it just won't click between a driver and a crew chief, and then that is going to force you into either rotating some crew chiefs around or just firing a crew chief altogether. Maybe I'll move a Cliff Daniels over to a Trayton Lapsevich and then bring, whoever I had in his position over to Christopher Bell and see if the chemistry kind of clicks between those two as well. And just having to manage those things and get results better on Sunday and Saturday as well would be really just a cool little feature to kind of navigate through. And as well, another feature that is very present in F1 Manager is the chemistry between the driver and their, of course, race engineer. And chemistry for, the pit crew. Like, they have their own kind of chemistry together, and that determines the outcome of the pit stop in terms of just fractions of a second difference. On higher chemistry, you might gain an extra second here and there, where on a lower end, like a 60 chemistry out of 100, they'll give up a second and a half to 2 seconds sometimes on a pit stop. They're just more prone to making errors, and having a loose wheel, for example. And then we go on beyond this whole chemistry and the people part of this franchise mode. Let's talk about R&D. So R&D, of course, is, in the current world of NASCAR, it's a little bit different because the teams don't have as much freedom to develop and upgrade their cars like they used to have, but there's still parameters they can kind of work around. And in my opinion, I think we would all welcome, you of course are free to comment down below if you disagree, but I feel like we would welcome, even if it's a little bit unrealistic to current day NASCAR, an actual R&D development and upgrade system into the game. Of course they already have that in NASCAR 25 technically, but I'm talking about significantly deeper. Look at the F1 My Team, okay? You have all the upgrades you can do right here. I'm talking these little upgrades that eventually make big impacts, stuff like that. Do something like that inside this mode and allow us to just get these little pieces here, like it's something to do with the spoiler, the splitter even, like little upgrades there, and, in the wheel well, some upgrades there, and in the brake pads, like these little things that make up a lot over time and allow us to really develop that. And on top of that, we can develop, just better aerodynamics, better downforce, and research and development. Of course, with the research, we have our head of the departments that really influence the speed and the, of course, just efficiency of these upgrades to aerodynamics and downforce and just all these different components that will allow us to develop and upgrade the cars and really make things just overall interesting, as other teams can also, the AI teams can make these same upgrades and learn these different things and have these developments that also bring them forward. I want to be able to, of course, also have to manage facilities like we can in F1 Manager or other sports games where, we have headquarters, we have like a wind tunnel that we have to upgrade and maintain as well over time, an engine shop, a fabrication shop, a driver simulator, even though, of course, manufacturers kind of have them. But give me an option to build my own driver simulator, and then we can also, be able to actually develop them, upgrade them to different levels, level 3, level 4, level 5, so on and so forth. And then even add like some kind of relationship between like your, departments that I just talked about, these facilities. And the better these facilities are all aligned together with their chemistry, also adds on top of the buffs you can get from better heads of aerodynamics or downforce or researchers to get just better efficiency in development of parts and upgrades as well. I got just a few more points. Sponsors. Let me, of course, go through signing sponsors and finding sponsors and negotiating prices for my team. Secondary sponsors, not just primary. I want secondaries and, the associate sponsors and, the little sponsors that are thrown onto the quarter panel of the car. Stuff like that. Let me, of course, go through the entire process of signing those on and negotiating the deals as the seasons progress, going into, planning for next season as well. And I mean, another thing is, even include, driver injuries, stuff like that, or pit crew member injuries, really have to manage the morale and just potential for things to go wrong and have backup plans, backup drivers that if you have in the stable as well, you can poach to come over and be like, hey, Hendrick Motorsports has their sim driver of Anthony Alfredo. Allow me to have a sim driver who can come in if a driver gets injured as well. And finally, I want to talk about the main part of the actual races happening. So when it comes to, actually managing a race, I'm going to take a role out of, I guess, I'm not going to say F1 manager for this one, but actually I'm going to allude to NHL games and their franchise mode. You can have the option of watching, so hear me out, this is going to be a big one. NR 2003, we have an option to just go into a race and we can spectate any car and watch all the racing happen without ever having to make a lap ourselves. So of course we do enter a car, but just take that option out. Don't even make me have to drive a car. Let me go in and let me watch the races play out. Let me have a little bit of control in terms of maybe telling, my drivers, maybe influencing a little bit on when they should pit or, the actual pit stop that we're going to do. 4 tires, 2 tires, fuel, no fuel, stuff like that. Making some of the pit calls for each car would be really, really cool. A caution comes out late in the race. I have 3 cars and, one team I'm going to say, hey, we were having a rough day running 20th. Let's throw 4 tires on it or 2 tires on it, try to gain some track position, see what happens, and being able to just manage those races, in an F1 manager style, but not actually racing. So I guess just like F1 manager actually in that sense. But then, like the NHL games, give me an option if I want. I can also just race as a specific driver, on my team if I want to. I would not really take that option, but allow me to at least manage the races and watch the races actually happen. That would be so awesome, and I cannot believe that no NASCAR game since 2003 has utilized this NR 2003 feature that we still love to this day of being able to go in and just simply watch the AI race, and it would be perfect for this NASCAR franchise mode. Now, if my driver, gets in a crash, I can actually see what happened, and then I know if I got to fire him or not, at the end of the season. Instead of just guessing, well, like, oh, he got in a crash, he had a DNF, and it says that in the results, but I couldn't watch the race, so I don't actually know what happened. But now I know what happened. He did something stupid, and I'm going to fire this guy now because he just cost me a bunch of money. Because if my driver gets in a crash, or my driver gets in the big one, 3 cars getting the big one at Talladega Super Speedway, I want to feel the damages from that. I want to have to pay the money, fork out the damages, and getting those cars repairs, and really make me suffer a little bit in this NASCAR franchise mode. I think would just be really, really cool. I think I covered the basic stuff that I think would be just absolutely crucial. I'm sure I have missed stuff off the top of my head, but I've gotten everything I've at least listed down here that I wanted to bring up. And I mean, one more other quick thing, being able to just simple things with your actual franchise and your team, being able to like determine actually where you're located, like stuff like that, and even relocate as time goes on, like we see in NHL or football games and stuff as well. I cannot believe that we have never actually really gotten this. We've had, very little small influences of it in previous games, but I'm talking about now going all in, like these other sports games that have their, pro mode, be a pro, play as a player, but then also a separate mode where you can just run an entire franchise and manage it. I think would be so cool. I want to hear your thoughts down below. I'm going to try my best to use like F1 Manager or even NHL games and even a little bit of F1 25 to kind of showcase what I'm talking about on screen. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.